Who were your best picks this fantasy football season? That is our topic for the Week 16, the Fantasy Championship edition of the Fantasy Football Survival Kit. Look, today we're going to celebrate the players, the guys who make this all possible, the guys out there literally sacrificing their bodies so that we can play this fake game. They're the ones that make it all real. I mean, it's fantasy football, so is any of it real? That's a bigger question, but today we're going to focus on celebrating the guys out there making the plays on the field, and we're going to celebrate you for making the correct picks. Let's get right into it. The first one comes in from Greg Core Gaming, and it's with the fourth pick that he took, Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey was a stud all year as a runner, as a receiver. Hell, he even threw a pass. I mean, it wasn't anything, but at one point he threw some passes. This guy was everything for your fantasy team this year. He was the clear correct choice at number 1 overall. If you took Christian McCaffrey and you did not win your fantasy league, that's a you problem, not a him problem. Next. This next one comes in from Reese Beast Fletch. In round 5, he selected Chris Godwin. I have been a Chris Godwin truther for years now. I told you back when he was a college prospect, he was going to be a great receiver in the league. He's been one of the 2 or 3 best fantasy receivers all year, steady as a rock, making big plays. It is unfortunate that we most likely will not get to use him in our fantasy football championships, but that just puts the onus on the rest of the guys to step up and help you win one for Chris Godwin. Hashtag win it for Godwin. That is the motto for all of you in your fantasy championships this week. Next. At Omega Criteria sends in our next one. They drafted Michael Thomas 6 overall, and of course his massive week 15 helped boost them into the championship game. You drafted Michael Thomas 6 overall back in August, you probably got laughed out of your draft room. This guy wasn't even the consensus top receiver in the game. He was sometimes ranked by people as like wide receiver 5 or 6. Many were very unconvinced that he could run back his great stats, his great efficiency of 2018. He did that and more. Nobody was more consistent. Nobody was more rock solid. Nobody dropped hammers in the box score quite like Michael Thomas this year. If you drafted him, you deserve to be a league winner. Next. This next one comes in from @ToneDad. Austin Eckler in the 8th round carried several of his teams. Isn't it beautiful that not only did Austin Eckler manage those big weeks early in the season when Melvin Gordon was gone, but he actually carried on that massive potential even when Gordon was back. If you were brave enough to spend a 7th round pick, big deal, on Austin Eckler, you hit a huge home run and you are laughing at all the other gutless chuckleheads in your league that thought that was too expensive. Next. This next one comes in from @Don Cheech, and yes, of course, this segment is actually all about Lamar Jackson, round 15. This guy got him in. I mean, give me a break. Fantasy community, let's come together for a second and admit the fact that it was embarrassing that in the early months, Lamar Jackson wasn't a top 10 drafted quarterback. I mean, come on. Oh, he can't throw. Who gives a shit if he couldn't throw? Obviously, he can throw. We all know that that was a dumb anecdote by now, but even if he couldn't throw, who gives a shit? His rushing equity alone would have made him a top 10 fantasy quarterback. It's embarrassing that we allowed this to happen, and we all need to wear that shame. Next. This next one comes in from @MeHernandez25. They got Devante Parker off waivers. Devante Parker, one of the true feel-good reclamation stories of the 2019 fantasy season. Left for dead, undrafted in a majority of places, Devante Parker rose from the bottom all the way to the top to offer you some massive, truly league-winning performances at the end of the year. It's just a reminder that you should never give up hope. Next. This next one comes in from @MHolmes1521, and yes, we talked about his quarterback. We have to talk about Mark Ingram as well. This guy was not really that highly regarded. He was too old. He was coming to a new team. He doesn't really catch passes. He's kind of boring. Hogwash. He's been a great fantasy pick because he offers you ceiling weeks. He pops in touchdowns. He makes big plays. He wasn't always week to week reliable, but sometimes you got to have that ceiling from your RB2. Hats off to you for investing in one of the old guys. Next. This one comes in from @Schaefer4WP, Mr. Irrelevant. His final pick was Darren Waller. For years, the fantasy football community has followed a very specific mantra. If you're hurting for a tight end, if you missed out on all of the first few waves, all you gotta do is find that athletic stud with a path to volume and you take him in the late rounds. Well, that path led you right to Darren Waller this year. One of the biggest thieveries of the entire fantasy draft. Darren Waller became a week-to-week reliable tight end play, even as the Raiders crashed. Next. This next one comes in from @XmasTree88. They drafted Courtland Sutton in the 9th round. Courtland Sutton was a very underrated receiver coming into this year, and I will personally wear the cone of shame on this one. I badmouthed Courtland Sutton all off season. Courtland Sutton has been a straight baller. He's been getting you 70 yards pretty much every week, making big plays and scoring touchdowns every now and again. Courtland Sutton could outright explode in 2020 if John Elway, could ever get his head out of his and solve his quarterback position next. This next one comes in from @Davey_MXP. Mark Andrews in the 13th round. You could have done a lot worse. You could have drafted Jack Doyle or one of the goofballs from the Jets or whatever. I mean, Mark Andrews, he offered you big weeks. He definitely won you some matchups all on his own. If you were worried about, his routes run in the preseason, or what about when the Ravens run the football? Where is he even going to be on the field? Well, guess what? He was, and he was balling. Hats off to you for taking him. Next. This next one comes in from @Johnny_Linda, Aaron Jones in the 4th round. Congrats, Aaron Jones truthers. You all have been trying to make this a thing for years, and here in 2019, it was finally a thing. You gotta love the fact that a couple of times this year, he straight up hammered in 3 touchdowns all on his own. I mean, that can win you a fantasy football matchup. Aaron Jones was a big thing. You believed. Congrats. Next. This one comes in from @BlackRoseMD1, Dalvin Cook. Outside of the top 3 at the running back position, Dalvin Cook was the right answer. He was better, frankly, than Barkley. He was better than Kamara. He was around for most of the year. He's probably not going to play in week 16, but he's got good backups behind him. Alexander Madison, Mike Boone, you could stash him with those guys and probably still win your league. If you haven't picked him up yet, well, it's probably too late, but hey, at least you made a good pick in Dalvin Cook. Next. This next one comes in from @TheRealSoulless81. They drafted DJ Moore in round 6, and Moore has pretty much been good all year despite having to deal with Kyle Allen. I mean, DJ Moore is the perfect receiver for a bad quarterback. He gets to line up against a lot of zone coverage. He gets to make those layup receptions, and frankly, that's who DJ Moore was coming out of college. If you liked him as a prospect like I did, then he's definitely become the player that you thought he would be. So if you drafted DJ Moore, that was the one you believed in more. Congrats to you. Next. This last one comes in from @T_Rushy. In the 6th round of a 12-teamer, they drafted Derrick Henry. People let him slip to the 5th or sometimes 6th round. I mean, that's aggressive, but you could easily get him in the 4th or 5th round, and that was all because people had all these doubts. Is he even good? Is he going to catch passes? Well, no, but who cares? His rushing ability on its own, his unique big play ability as this monstrous back lifted him all the way to the top of the fantasy football running back rankings this year, and the believers like me, they have been able to bask in his holy glory all year, and what a damn season it was. That is going to do it for this week's edition of the Fantasy Football Survival Kit. To those of you in your fantasy championship this week, good luck to you. I hope you, a loyal Survival Kit viewer, take down the competition. For those of you that didn't make it, well, hey, congrats to you too, because just like all the players that we celebrated today, we need to celebrate you too, because it's hard to win a fantasy championship. Only one team gets to do it. Just like in the real NFL, only one of the 32 teams gets to win a damn Super Bowl. Everyone can't win one every year, but everyone can have fun. Everyone can enjoy it. And that's what this all is, right? As the season comes to a close, make sure you join the Fantasy Football Survival Kit Facebook group, where we will be interacting all off season about the many things that will be happening in the NFL. Because if you know one thing about the NFL, it never goes away.